If you've been following along with the channel, then you might already have seen me make a few little art pieces here, and some of them feature faces and some of them feature succulents, but I haven't really gotten to this video where I teach you how I make skin tones. Now, skin tones is something that I think a skill that every artist should know, especially because we don't have like real skin tones on our coloring materials. When you first buy them, usually you will only have the primaries and you won't have any skin tone colors, like colors that are specifically skin tones, unless you are buying a very expensive set of coloring materials. Then you might have some. So it's actually a nice skill to have, to know how to mix skin tones. Now I'm using watercolor pencils, but this theory can also be applied on watercolor and on coloring pencils. You can get the same results. I will show you how. Now, there are many different ways on how to get skin tones because skin tones are technically brown. So we have here a brown burnt ochre. Okay, let me just find it. Okay, this one. This is the burnt ochre of the Faber-Castell, and this is already a nice brown color that you can use straight away if you are making skin. Okay, you can apply a little bit of this one so that you can get a light skin tone, so you can show more of the paper, and then you can also press hard to get more dark. But now, this is not exactly the color that you will be copying from your reference. If you are using a reference, this will not be the automatic color that you would want, because some skin tones have actually have some variation to them. They're not just brown color. Some skin have more yellow on them, and some skin have more red on them. So we have here a variety of different reds, blue, and yellow, and we can mix these three primary colors. Usually you will have these on your starting materials. You can mix these three to produce browns that you would really like. Okay, if you are using a or dealing with a lighter skin tone, yellow and a red might suffice. Okay, I will try to mix this together. So we will apply a little bit of the yellow and a little bit of the red. And because this this is supposed to make orange, but because we are like lightly pressing on the paper, it will show the paper more, so the orange will not be that saturated, and it will turn into a light brown. Okay, brown looking color. Now if you are dealing with a much more paler complexion, you can add a little bit more yellow so that we can make it more pale. Okay, it's not that red. And you can see, if I apply water on this one, because this is watercolor, the colors will blend together and they will produce a nice brown. Okay, my brush is a little bit dirty. Okay, so that is a nice light brown. Now usually when I apply water color pencils to make the color much more smoother, I will use my palette here. I realized that I didn't show this very much, but I will usually just apply the red and then apply a lot more of the yellow. This is how I do it. If you are watching my other videos, I don't show this very often. And then I will use my brush, dampen it a little bit, not sopping wet, because if I wet it too much, if I add more water, the color will disappear. So just a little bit of water. Then I mix that together and we will get a nice orange that if we add a little more white the paper, it will turn a little bit brown. Okay, I think that's too orangey. Okay, I think I added too much yellow. Let's add a little bit more red. Just a bit of water. Now the pigments may not be visible here, but there are colors there. So yeah, I think that's much more acceptable as a skin tone. Okay, so you can see that using just the red and the yellow, we can get a pretty pale yellowish color. But if you want to go darker than that, you can add blue. Now you can use the light blue, or I have also here a deep cobalt blue. Now, when using blues in your skin tone, if you are using watercolor or coloring pencils, usually the darker the color of the blue is, the darker it will make the skin tone. Because when we are mixing colors, we are making them darker. You cannot go lighter than these colors that they are giving. So if you use a very dark blue, then you are starting in a very dark value. If you remember our value scale, and if you want to lighten this up, you can actually apply just a little bit of blue in it. But if you just use this color, then it will start at a lower value. It will make your skin tone very dark very quickly. So which is why I would recommend that you be careful with using blue. Now, I often use this light blue because it's already very light, so it will not darken that much. But you can see that I've already used it up. It's already much more shorter than the others. So we can still use the darker blue instead of that one, and we will just have to apply less of it, and then we will apply more yellow and then more red. Okay, now this will produce a brown color, okay, that we can use on our skin. And if you are using blue, especially if you are using larger amounts, this will usually be applicable to darker skin. Yes, and if we apply that, there you can see that it's already very dark compared to the other one that we did before. Okay, it might not be that visible. Okay, so I place it up. Okay, so you can see it's much more browner. It's much more brown than this one, which is a little bit orangey. Okay, I hope that you can see it properly on camera. Okay, if we add more blue, if we use a lot of blue, this is usually used to make like shadows. Okay, if your face is turning away from the light, then you might want to add more blue so that you can get a much more darker skin tone. Okay, and you can also apply the same color with several layers, so you can darken your skin tone. Okay, because this is just the first wash, it will tend to look really light. But if you want to start very dark, then you can make the first wash very dark by adding more blue, and then you can see that just on the first wash of that, it's already much more darker than this one. Okay, so if you want to save time, you might want to mix the accurate value on your palette before placing it on the paper. Now, I would say that these are very helpful if you are just using primary colors, but you can also get some nice looking skin tones from using secondary colors. Okay, for example, you can also use a dark orange, like this one. I also have a different kind of red, which is cinnabar, and this is a much more saturated, much more vibrant red. It's not as dark as the first red that I've used. Okay, the light geranium. This is very dark, and this is much more lighter. So if we use this, we can add more saturation to the skin in a much more lighter value. It will not darken very quickly because we are using a light color. Okay, and same with the orange. So you can see here we've already used the yellow, red, and blue. So we can just use the orange or the cinnabar with a little bit of blue to achieve that color. But what I also did, I've actually practiced this earlier. I've used here an orchid color on the cinnabar. Now the cinnabar is already red, and orchid is red and blue. Okay, but because the cinnabar is light red, okay, so it won't be dark. It won't be that much dark, but it will add more blue. Okay, I've also read that you can mix purple with orange to make a good skin tone, and we're gonna try that. Okay, so we added a little bit of orchid and a little bit of cinnabar, and we will mix that. Let's put it here. Okay, so I might have not mixed it quite nicely. Yeah, but that is the same color, I think, with the yellow, red, and blue. Okay, but I think this one is a little bit warmer than the other ones that we made. Okay, it's much more saturated because we are using a much more saturated red. Okay, now if you see here the yellow, red, and blue, that we've used, okay? Because the red is dark and the blue is dark, so the skin that we made is a little bit cool. It's not that warm. But if you're using a warmer red and a blue that has some reddishness to it, okay, we can make a much more saturated, much more vibrant skin tone, okay? So that is using the cinnabar and the orchid, okay? Now the gold ochre, I think, is another type of cool yellow, okay? And the dark carmine is a cool red, okay? And I think that I made a nice combination, a nice skin tone using these two colors. So we will test it out, okay? Gold ochre and a little bit of dark carmine. Now dark carmine is much more warmer than the light geranium, okay? It's much more warmer than this one. Okay, so we'll mix that. Let's see what kind of skin tone we can achieve. Okay. Let's apply it here. Okay, so see, that is much more warmer, but it is the same. I think it is a little bit close to the yellow and red combination that we made earlier, because technically the gold ochre, yellow ochre, if you have other coloring materials, is still yellow, and the dark carmine is still red, so it has the same effect with the yellow and red that we did. I think this is already dry. We can apply more layers on top of that to see what kind of mid-tones we will get. Yellow and original red that we used earlier. So now that we've diluted it, okay, where we put our brush at the beginning is the more saturated, more darker, and then when we move away, it will be more pale. Okay, it will be paler, the color will be paler. So that is good if you are making transitions. So for example, this is the darker part. We will just apply it here, and then we will go slightly backwards. Okay, but if that is not working, okay, because I think that's very even, we can also add water to there, make a smooth transition. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to do that so that you can see how many values you can go. Okay, so yeah. Now with watercolor pencils, another thing to note is that they are permanent. Once you activate them, now this one, because I just scrubbed the pencil earlier, this is not activated yet, so it will be smudged if you add water it. So you have to be careful if you're using them as pencils. Don't get them wet because they will be activated. And yeah, if I put water on this one, it will be activated like that. Okay, but once they are activated, once they are basically activated by water, you cannot erase them anymore. They're not like watercolors, which can be adjusted later on, because watercolor pencils are much more permanent. Okay, so for example, we have this one, or this one, I think this is dry already. If we apply water to it, it will not be removed that much. Okay, it will stay on the paper. Okay, it doesn't go away, compared to if it is not activated like this one. If we add water, it will smudge. Okay, but once that it has dried after this stage, it will not be reworkable. You will not be able to adjust it. And I think that is a really nice feature of watercolor pencils, because you can add more layers on top and it will not remove, it will not lift the paints underneath because they're permanent. Okay, so that is one thing that you might want to know. So now we're gonna use these swatches so that we can make a portrait. I will be showing you how I color a portrait, and we will be using these colors. Now this will be the reference that we will be using, this pretty girl. And I use this because I don't want to paint a skin that is too light, because very light skin tone is I think it's difficult for me, and already the paper that we're using is not that light. Okay, so I think I want to start with a much more mid-tone or middle light skin tone, and then we will also be painting this one, which is a much more darker skin tone. I grabbed these photos from Pinterest. So let me just make a sketch of these two faces and then we can color it. Okay, so I think that's about it for the sketch that I will be making. I don't want to make this like very detailed with when it comes to making faces, and because I don't want to spend forever correcting the faces, I think this is a good like approximation of the reference that we have. Okay, the girl I think has much more bigger eyes on mine because it's okay to make the eyes larger on the girls, and on the guy I think that the eyes are made a little just a little bit small. I don't copy the exact same reference because I don't want to make it too realistic. Okay, I just wanted to have a little bit of like stylization on my side. Okay, I wanted to make it a little bit like cartoony. Okay, now when it comes to using our colors, when it comes to painting our skin, painting portraits like this one, okay, we want to separate the changes in color of the skin. Okay, now you can see here that this part is lighter, this part is lighter, and then this inside the nose is lighter, and then this top part is lighter. So that will be our more highlighted parts. Okay, so those are the areas that we will apply less color. Okay, and then here on this part you can see here that this is the midtones. Okay, so we will apply I think a second layer of color on that, and on this part which is very shaded, so we'll add more darker colors on that one. Okay, so yeah, that's what we're gonna do. And yeah, I think I also wanted to show you how I use my pencils, okay, to apply color without blending them first on my palette. Okay, so I think I wanted to do this experiment with you guys, and I wanted to make this because I realized that the paper that I bought recently absorbs water very nicely. So yeah, we can use that straight away. Okay, now for the girl, I would like to use the gold ochre and the dark carmine skin tone that we made. Okay, get the gold ochre and the dark carmine here. So yeah, what we will do is we will apply a thin layer of these two colors. Okay, I think I will start with the dark carmine first. Yeah, we'll start with that. Okay, now I wanted to activate this first before we add the shadow parts. Okay, so you can see here on our reference we are only applying the midtones, we are not yet applying the darker parts. Okay, and I wanted to do this so that we don't muddy up too much, because if I make a mistake here it will be easy to fix, but if I add too much shadows very quickly it will be very difficult to fix later on. Okay, so we will start with the lightest part. We will start activating on the lightest part, going to the darkest part, so that we can make nice transitions. Okay, so this is the lightest part. Okay, so yeah, we will apply that, and then we will activate towards the darker parts. Okay, so I hope that there is some transition there. Okay, now I think we added a little bit too little color. Yeah. Now when it comes to activating watercolor pencils, you don't like scrub them all over the place, because it will move the pigments and the colors that you place in the beginning, it will move around if you scrub your brush. So all you need to do is just a little bit of dabbing. Here's our first wash, and I will wait for that to dry out before we apply more layers. Okay, now we are going to the much more difficult part, which is the guy, and his skin tone is much more darker. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna use the Cinnabar Orchid on that face. Okay. Is already dry, and what we can do, because I think that is too pale, I think we can add a little bit of yellow to that. So you can see here, using this method also showed the techniques that you can do if your color is like wrong, okay, but it's already going there. You can just layer on or glaze another layer of color so that you can get the color that you want. Okay, continuing on, we will now add much more darker colors on our guy. But if you want to correct something, because these are pencils, you can actually try and lift up the color with an eraser. Okay, now I would recommend this if you are just done with the first layer, and if you haven't done that much color yet. Okay, you can still erase some of them. Okay, so I just erase some color from the eye. Okay, there. I think that did the trick. Okay, so we will now add more darker colors on this one. Now that we're done with those colors, I don't want to add more detail here, because here this is not about the hair, this is just about the skin. So we will just now add some details on the face, and I want to use the colored pencils dry, because I don't wanna fiddle with those little details. But this is where the color pencils are good for, because we can use them as pencils and not as paint anymore. Okay, we can just use them like pencils. So I will add a dark magenta and a little bit of red probably on the lips. To make our lines. So yeah, I think that's about it for our two portraits. Yeah, I can say that I'm pretty happy of how it turned out. It doesn't look exactly like our reference, but it's got the vibes. Okay, and yeah, I still think I have to work on my faces. I think I made this one too wide. I should have probably made it too short. Okay, probably the same with the girl. Yeah, but that's just about it. Okay, if you really like the tips that we shared here on our video, please make sure to hit the thumbs up. And if you want to see more of my work, you can check me out on Mac on Instagram. Yeah, but I think that this video has been too long already, so I think that's about it, and I hope that you like the step-by-step things that we did. But I think that's about it for this video, guys. Comment down below if you have any questions, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.